Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's still afternoon, I think. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here speaking alongside such distinguished panellists. We have Labour's Mayor-in-Waiting, Ken Livingstone, here today. Perhaps even one of Labour's leadership candidates in waiting as well, too, and John Cruddas, maybe. That's what people tell me, John. I must add a disclaimer here. I'm not actually a member of the Labour Party. I'm not a member of any political party. I'm not sure what I'm doing up here. I'm a hack. I'm a lefty hack. I'm a left-wing journalist. I'm a rare and perhaps dying breed in a media dominated by the right and the rather tired and reactionary nostrils of the British right. And so it is great to be here with you all at this Progressive London conference here on a rather cold Saturday in January. Still, it could be worse. It was either come here and go to Davos. It was either come here or go to Davos and be stuck with a bunch of bankers. I can't believe you asked for that. So it's much better to be here with you all, with the progressives of the capital city, Labour, Lib Dems, Greens, trade unionists, Respect, etc. It's great. I was thinking what to speak about last night. What do I talk about the way forward? And I was on the train going home, and the Evening Standard, some of you may have seen that little story, there was an economic story in the Standard which had the headline, "Good news, ... And I thought, what's the good news? Recession's over, maybe? Unemployment's down? Property prices up? Consumer confidence increasing, maybe? What is it? What could the good news be? Good news, ... Rise in people earning more than £1 million. Great. Fantastic. Despite the credit crunch, despite the financial crisis, despite the worst crash in living memory, according to the Standard, the number of people earning £1 million or more, £1 million or more, reached a record 14,000 last year. I read the story, and I was reminded of a line, I was reminded of the multi-millionaire shadow chancellor of the Conservative Party, Gideon George Osborne, and what he gleefully proclaimed to the Tory conference last year. He said, "We're all in this together. We're all in this together. Or not." Because this is the week that not only do we have the story about millionaires, we also had a shocking new report from the National Equality Panel, which showed how the richest 10% in our society are now worth more than 100 times the poorest 10% in our society. The gap between rich and poor is wider now in 2010, sadly 13 years into a Labour government, than it was 40 years ago. That's the state of inequality. And so any discussion about the way forward, the route forward, has to begin by acknowledging this one very fundamental truth about modern Britain. We're not all in this together. We are not all in this together. Some of us have had a very good recession. Some of us have had a great time. Some of us are back to business as usual. Some of us have forgotten that a banking crisis even happened, even though it was only 16 months ago. And guess who the leading amnesiacs are in our society today? Len's already given us a little hint. It is, of course, the bankers themselves. Goldman Sachs, for example, earlier this month, proudly proclaimed that they were showing restraint, that's the word that was used, restraint when they announced that their bonus pot, their remuneration pot for their London partners would only be £1 million a year. I can imagine the Goldman Sachs spokesman like Austin Powers, £1 million, that's it! That's all! What are you getting worked up about? We pay our taxes. In fact, a recent survey showed that Goldman Sachs in 2008 paid an effective tax rate of 0.6%. 0.6%. Can you imagine what the reaction of Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, who said he's doing God's work? Can you imagine what his reaction was when he heard this? He must have said, 0.6, that much? Why are we paying any taxes at all? We're off to Switzerland. This is outrageous. Because that's the mindset. You know what's really outrageous? The Centre for Economics and Business Research has predicted that bonuses are going to grow in 2010, they're going to grow in 2011, and they're going to peak at £7.5 billion in 2012. That's within 4 years of the biggest financial crash in living memory. I ask you this, has our society, has humankind, has the planet ever produced as greedy, as stupid, as self-serving, as self-deluding, as irresponsible, as reckless, as shameless a bunch of people as our leading banking and financial institutions. You put me to a more reckless, greedy and stupid bunch of people. And yet, despite our wholly justified anger and outrage, we shouldn't be outraged. We should be distracted from the way forward. It's about the way forward. But what is the way forward? The key point is this. The pressing issue is this. There is no moving forward. There is no avoiding a repeat of the past. There is no dodging another crash with all the pain and hardship and suffering that inflicts on ordinary families, bonus poor families, unless progressives, unless the left make it our #1 goal in the coming months and years to stand up to the overmighty and irresponsible power of finance. That should be our #1 goal. Otherwise, the City of London is simply sitting on a ticking time bomb, and we're just going to see it all happen again in front of our eyes with the same consequences, the same fallout for ordinary people. Banking, as they say, is too important to be left to bankers. Now is the time to cut down the size of our bloated, bonus-rich financial sector. A banking sector that even that famous Trotskyist, that well-known loony lefty Lord Adair Turner of FSA and CBI fame has described as socially useless, as swollen, as beyond a socially reasonable size. He's right, of course, but the window for change, the window for reform is rapidly shutting, which is why it's so important we have conferences like this, which is why it's so important we get together and discuss it, because people want to move on. And the window for reform is changing as our politicians continue to tinker and fiddle at the edges. Finally, this month, the US president comes out and says, okay, let's break up the big banks. And the British Labour Chancellor Nick Clegg says, nah, we're not going to. We don't want to. It's inefficient. Meanwhile, the hedge funds engineer a takeover of Cadbury by Kraft in a deal that was funded by £7 billion of debt. Meanwhile, the Tobin tax remains a pipe dream. Meanwhile, as Lenz pointed out, our leading politicians, Lord Mandelson, Mr. Darling, they want to repeal the two most popular things that Labour has done in years: a 50% tax on the richest earners and a bonus tax on the bankers. Darling says it's temporary, only for this year, and Mandelson says 50p we're getting rid of it as soon as we can. Genius. These people are geniuses. And then we wonder why Labour's about to get screwed on May the 6th, when you go into an election with this mindset.